Welcome to the July 5th regular meeting of the Lane Community College Board of Education. My name is Rosie Pryor, and for a few moments more, it is my honor to gavel this meeting to order. The very first thing we do when we call our meetings to order is we typically read the roll, but I think we might postpone that for a few moments and do a land recognition first. And that will be done by newly elected board member Kevin Alltucker.
I'd like to start our meeting with the acknowledgement that the land we are on is the traditional homelands of the Kalapuya people. The Kalapuya were stewards of their land for over 14,000 years before their traditional way of life was forever disrupted and destroyed. We start our meeting with humility and reverence for the original inhabitants, the Kalapuya.
Thank you. Our very first order of business this evening is to introduce some brand new board members. But before we can call them board members, we need to swear them into office. President Bolger.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to administer the oath of office to our new board members. I will have you stand at the appointed time. Would our newly appointed board members, Lisa Fragala, Zach Mulholland, Kevin Alltucker, Steve Mattel, and Denise Diamond, please stand. You have been elected to membership on the Lane Community College Board of Education. You are commended on your willingness to serve. Appointment to public office carries with it certain responsibilities. Your responsibility is not limited to any particular area, but applies to the whole district. Your judgment must be based on the needs and desires of all the people affected by your actions. As a member of this board, you will have the opportunity to voice your individual judgments in the determination of programs and policies. According to state law, the purpose of the community college is to provide educational services, including but not limited to vocational or technical education programs, lower division collegiate programs, adult education, and community services. I trust that you will continue to familiarize yourself with your legal and moral responsibilities through careful examination of the laws of the state of Oregon, and that you will apply your knowledge through the careful development and application of board policies. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Oregon, and that you will, to the best of your ability, uphold board policies and faithfully perform the duties of a member of the Board of Education for Lane Community College during your term of office? You may answer, I do.
I do.
Thank you and welcome.
And with that, it is now my pleasure to turn over the gavel to your current vice chair, Steve Mattel.
Okay, well, thank you. Welcome, everybody, and goodbye to Rosie. I hear she's going for a martini and dinner on her husband, Chris, as she heads out into the sunset. We'll take a moment, let her depart with Chris. All righty, let's get down to business. We are under item 2, oath of office, item B there. Call roll. Thank you, Celia. First, we will call the roll. Celia, will you handle the duties, please?
Yes. Kevin Alltucker,
Present.
Denise Diamond,
Present.
Mike Eister,
Here.
Austin Folnagy,
Here.
Lisa Fragala,
Present.
Steve Mattel,
Here.
Zach Mulholland.
Present. All right, well, thank you. All right, now we'll move on to item B, the 2023-24 board chair and vice chair election. We will start with nominations for chair and then vote and then move to nominations for vice chair. So do I have any nomination?
Point of order?
Excuse me?
Point of order.
Yes.
Our process in the past has been to allow people the opportunity to express interest in the position and then to share why they are interested in the position, why they would like to serve in that position. And I think we have several new board members. It might be a good opportunity for them to get to know some people.
Okay, well, thank you. I was thinking that there would be nominations and and then those nominated would have an opportunity to say, yes, they accept or no, they don't, and then
Okay.
have a moment to speak on their behalf, of their
Okay, great.
interest.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, is it okay to proceed?
Totally works for me.
All right, well, then we will move ahead with nominations for chair. Do I have any nominations for chair? Zach,
I move to appoint Austin Folnagy as chair.
we have a second.
I second.
Do we have any other nominations?
I nominate Steve Mattel, service chair.
Thank you. And do we have any, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, any other nominations? Well, okay, then we have two nominations. I think the next, I guess the opportunity really can go to the person who led with the motion first, and then we'll have those who are nominated speak to their, to address their interest. Go ahead in that case.
Yeah,
There's
I
that.
just have been very impressed with Austin. Reached out to me early on and offered his expertise on the community college, and just young person with a lot of bright ideas that wants to move the college forward in a positive direction. And I think his role in the OSBA is one that will be very valuable in his service as chair if selected as chair.
Austin, would you like to speak?
Absolutely. First off, let me just thank the firefighters who are fighting the fires at Moon Mountain. Having evacuated from the Holiday Farm fire, I just want to thank all firefighters for what they're doing. So thank you for that. We're in a pivotal role and a pivotal moment as a community college, not only within our institution, but within our community as well. We have employers who are having difficulty finding workers and finding skilled workers to fill their positions, which has negative impacts on our local economy. We have an entire workforce that requires high skill, high training demands, and this institution is the community's college. And with that, I believe that we play a really pivotal role in all of this, in this post-pandemic world. I want the history books of this community college to state that not because of the pandemic, but despite of the pandemic, that we were able to support our community members. We were able to help educate and serve underprivileged and underserved communities within Lane County, that we were able to serve both rural and urban communities, that we were able to allow for a economic development through not only workforce development, but also through a variety of different programs that help create the workforce of the future, both in areas of healthcare, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, firefighting, aviation, especially with unmanned aviation. I also see just great opportunities to not only support job seekers and those who are seeking employment, but also to create the next job creators through the Small Business Development Center and various other programs that we offer here at this community college. This is, I always have seen higher education and community college as the gateway to the American dream. I sincerely believe that my skills and my capacity, both as Vice President of Oregon Community College Association, as well as Chair, can really blend well together to help advance our goals as a community college. There's some difficult times that we have ahead of us as a board, but there's also some great opportunities. And those opportunities, I think, will really show that after 60 years of being an institution, the incredible history and the incredible opportunities we have in the next 60 years. I really would appreciate your support for board chair. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Austin. I believe now we'll move to Mike, who nominated your vice chair, myself, to address his nomination, and then I'll have a chance to speak.
Yeah, I didn't come with a prepared speech, but I do have a few comments. I have known and worked with Steve for a number of years. We certainly worked together on this board for the time that Steve's been on the board, as well as I've worked with Austin during that time. I've known Steve to be a highly seasoned, experienced community leader, having chaired the eWeb board for a number and served on that board for a number of years. Has very broad base of leadership experience. And I've been impressed with his balanced approach to considering issues that are brought before our board. And I think he is very thoughtful. And he surprises me from time to time. His votes are not predictable to me because I think he weighs every issue on the merit of that particular issue rather than on partisanship or being tugged by a particular group of people. And so to me, that's a very important part of serving as a chair, that you approach every issue objectively and that you weigh each issue on its own merit. And having worked with Steve for a long time and having known him for an even longer time and observed his leadership role in other positions, I have confidence that that's the kind of leader he would be for the Lane Community College Board.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll say a few words. I also did not prepare a speech, but I'll just say a few things about, I think, the skills that I bring. So first off, I'll say I love this place. I love LCC, and I think I've demonstrated that to fellow board members. The presentations we've received from staff over the last year in particular have been great in learning about some of the programs and some of the, the successes that our students are having as a result of those programs. I love the place, and therefore I really want to be there, and as all the members of the board do, I'm sure, to ensure student success going forward. So, so that's first and foremost for me is student success and kind of focusing on that, not to the exclusion of other things. There's lots of other concerns that sort of bear on that, but that is my kind of North Star when it comes right down to it. I think I'll say that I think I'm really clear about both the strengths of the institution, but also its challenges, and new board members have been oriented to some of those challenges in the last handful of weeks. Folks who've been here for longer know those things. We're going to face a tough year, right? We've already discussed that a little bit, that we passed a budget, the recent board passed a budget that calls for some budget cuts if we aren't able to somehow make up the shortfall in expected revenue with additional student recruitment efforts. And so we'll try all those things, but staff are already working on those packages, and it will be painful. We know that it will be difficult, and quite likely it'll also, at least some of it, right, will be necessary. And so my role as one of 7 would be to make sure that all voices are heard, right? That ultimately that everybody's concerns are understood and felt and addressed thoroughly, that we get to sort of the bottom of whatever the issues are and make a very clear recommendation or requirement of action back to our president. That's the role of the board president at the end of the day, right? Is to make sure that all the voices on the other board are heard, those various concerns have an opportunity to be aired at current or future board meetings, and that as a board, we give very clear direction to our president. So I would work to be ensuring that. Mike mentioned that I have prior board experience in the leadership roles at eWeb, so there's some value there, I think, that I bring to the institution. I've been working as your board vice chair for the last year, working with Rosie quite closely, and of course, meeting with her and President Bolger on a more or less a weekly basis. And so there's some history there that I also find valuable. The last thing I'll say is really just to the new board members in particular that I'm sorry that you're kind of having to launch into board service with what is potentially divisive issue. That's unfortunate, and I'll just say for my part that I'll do, regardless of the outcome, I'll do my part to make sure that we move forward as one, because that's the most important thing for the students and the institution. Okay. We're in a little bit of a weird situation. I don't quite have a lot of precedent for this. Does anybody else wish to speak? I think that's probably an opportunity that everybody deserves on behalf of either of the candidates.
Whoever wins, Lane Community College wins. And I truly believe that, Steve.
Okay, I could use a little assistance.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's why I was saying usually we don't take the motions until people have had an opportunity to express interest, because now we have two motions on the
Mhm.
table. And you do need to take them in the order that they were presented.
Okay, so I believe the first motion was in support of Austin Folnagy's candidacy for chair. And I suppose then we'll just ask Celia to take the roll.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond. Aye. Mike Eister,
No,
Austin Folnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
No.
Zach Mulholland.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, that motion carries. Austin Folnagy is the president of our board.
congratulations, Austin.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Let's see. Usually chair would sit there, but I'll go ahead and sit here.
You want to sit here?
Let's see. No, I want to be able to see all the faces and everything. So
In the middle?
I'll see.
You want to be on the end.
Yeah, exactly. I probably want to be on the end just so I can see all the faces and so forth that I will not forget. I will not forget this corner here.
Yeah.
All right. So the next item for business is so I believe we should probably indicate interest for vice chair. So I'll open it up for those who are interested to go ahead and indicate if you are interested in the vice chair position. Okay, I see we have one of interest. Let me go ahead and give her an opportunity to speak, and then we will go from there and see if there's any other interest. Lisa?
Sure, thank you. So I, as Steve said, love this college and have been very honored to serve on the Board of Education for 5 years. I was remarking earlier today that this was the third time I've been sworn in since I was appointed for a year. And so that was exciting to me in some wonky way. But having been on the board for that time period, I did serve as board chair for 2 years. And I think I have a good idea of how to support both the president and a chair, as well as a history of some of the protocols and procedures and the priorities and challenges that the board may be challenged by. So I would be honored to serve again and would appreciate the board's support.
All right. And then open it up again for anyone else who would be interested in the vice chair role. Seeing none, is there a motion for the nomination?
I move to nominate Lisa for vice chair.
Excellent. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. If we can call a roll for the vote.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Austin Folnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
Aye.
Zach Mulholland.
Thank you, everyone. All right, next is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. And I believe roll call still for the adoption.
Yes.
Yep, exactly.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond,
Aye.
Mike Eister,
Aye.
Austin Folnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel.
Aye.
Zach Mulholland.
Aye. Excellent. The agenda has been adopted. Now's the opportunity for public comment. Do we have anyone that signed up for public comment either?
Yes.
Excellent.
We have Josh Blunt, followed by Amanda Blunt.
Excellent. And do we have anyone online? Okay. We have one online. Fantastic. Cool. So we'll start with in person first, and then we'll move to online and then in person.
Grab my cheat sheet here. So firstly, I'd like to say I loved the ties and I would request to have one of those down the road. It would be a great recruiting asset for me. So my name's Josh Blunt. I'm the head baseball coach here at Lane. I've been a collegiate coach for 26 years, 12 of which have been here. It's been a beautiful experience. It's been its own difficulties, as you well know, too. So we have made the playoffs every year since 2014. This last year, in 2023, we played 52 road games from an unplayable facility. We had one practice on campus, February 25th. So what our student athletes have had to do with experience is pretty traumatic. We are off campus every day. You can imagine what 52 games traveling kind of feels like on the process. Our team GPA for 3 terms was over a 3.5 cumulative across the board. We had 10 of 11 sophomores receive an AA degree. 8 of our 11 sophomores signed a 4-year scholarship. The 3 remaining, probably due to COVID and just the length of time that they've been here, have moved on academically and kind of going to the next phase of life. As of a week ago today, I'm pleased to announce that we received a sponsorship for the amount of $598,000 to go directly towards field turf. From my understanding, from the 2020 bond that was passed for LCC, that 4.5 million was allocated for athletics at that time, and that roughly 2.5 million has been spent to date. So there's still some remaining funds to move forward. The quotes that I've gotten for full field turf range anywhere between 1.4 to 1.6 million. There's some facility upgrades that need to happen as well. Lane's baseball field was built in 1969. It has had little to no upgrades in that time. We are on the lowest point of our entire campus. Everything that we build above it, the water is going to percolate and go down in a sport that doesn't allow for a ton of water. I'm requesting and hoping that we advocate for our program and move forward with some of the bond money to finish this project as we're getting community support as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to an online public comment. Oh, we'll do online and then, was there one person online?
Oh, we'll take
And then we'll do the in-person. Yeah.
What's the name?
Anna Scott.
Anna Scott.
Did I hear my name?
Yes.
Okay, was it for a report?
Are you here for public comment, Anna?
I am not.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem. Next in person.
Amanda Blunt.
Thank you, Amanda.
Not used to these things. I'm ready whenever the clock's ready. Evening, Board of Ed, executives. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Amanda Blunt. I'm here to talk to you about Lane's baseball program. I've worked for Lane for over 8 years, and I'm the HR project coordinator too. So that entails leading the recruitment team, onboarding, employee engagement, whatever Shane tells me to do. And I'm also LCCEF's union appointed representative for the Bond Oversight Committee. Oh, and I'm Coach Blunt's wife. We like to say we are all in support of this college. Supporting the turf project directly aligns with President Bolger's desire to bring back vibrancy on campus, as well as the institutional priority of increasing enrollment. Retention is also a very key thing for the success of us. The baseball program embodies that. We as an organization desire all of these things for our students that the student athletes experience. Coach Blunt has demonstrated that these students are retained, they progress, they complete while juggling a rigorous athletic schedule. I have the opportunity and the privilege to watch Coach Blunt, the players, and have insider observations to truly understand the impact not being able to practice or play on campus. When I attended the NWAC
championships this year. I had parents come to me with questions why the college has not invested and supported the baseball team despite this year's success. Unfortunately, I did not have much of an answer for them, and I truly want to have an answer for them. I explained that we have new administration, new board members, congratulations, by the way, and explained you're all still getting a handle on everything. There's a lot going on. But, you know, there's still things that need to be solved for this program. And parents question when they came here for recruiting visits and they see all the other facilities, there's a quite big discrepancy, right? Soccer is turf, track has turf, basketball is gorgeous. So they see it with their own eyes, right? And, you know, it's more important than ever that we as an organization be proactive and innovative to solve for the problems that you spoke about earlier, right? We have deficits, we have shortfalls. With the baseball program, we have a captive audience. Mr. Eister could maybe speak to that himself. But, you know, Coach Blend, by securing the sponsorship, he's not coming, you know, saying, I need you to do all of this. He's saying, let's collaborate. Let's get this done together. It's more important than ever that we do this for our student athletes, and just thank you for being here, and I'm out of time. And then we do have something, maybe I'll send it to you, Celia, later that you can share with the board.
Really appreciate that, as well as the written comments. Thank you. All right. Anyone else signed up? Excellent. All right. Next is going to be the president's report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations too.
Thank you.
I would like to first recognize that July is Disability Pride Month and the National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. We also want to welcome our new board members to their first meeting. That was Denise Diamond, Kevin Alltucker, and Zach Mulholland, and our returning board members, Steve Mattel and Lisa Fragala. As we enter into a new academic and fiscal year, we want to take a moment to reflect on the achievements of the previous year. In the area of student completions, a total of 1,120 graduates earned 1,886 associate degrees and certificates. I want to thank everyone who attended, participated in, and organized the 2023 commencement. We also focused on 3 priorities: fiscal condition, enrollment, and institutional culture. In the area of fiscal condition, a comprehensive fiscal condition report was completed by 2 retired chief financial officers in higher education who presented their findings to the Board of Education in March of 2023. In the area of enrollment, college enrollment has been on an upward trend since winter 2023 after a decade-long decline. Enrollment was up 7.4% in winter 2023 and 4.7% in spring 2023, and is still tracking in that same direction. A virtual assessment has been completed by the Education Advisory Board, or EAB, a comprehensive assessment of registration, advising, and admission system by ACRO, which stands for the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admission Officers, which is a national professional organization, is in the final stages of completion. Next, I, along with the Vice President of Academic Affairs, are meeting with Lane County superintendents in their school districts to establish rapport and extend partnerships through the College Now program. In the area of institutional culture, a campus climate forum was held in February of 2023. We had 371 attendees. And at the end of that forum, an invitation to the college community went to the group to ask them to volunteer for 4 work groups on respect and fairness, ethics and integrity, professional development and growth, and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The group came up with actionable project ideas, which the cabinet has adopted. The college, while challenges are facing the institution, has a positive outlook also on the next academic year. We are optimistic that we were able to receive the $8 million for Building 16 renovation through the capital construction bill that moved out of the Oregon legislature, and we're hopeful that Governor Kotek will sign. Peace Health has pledged a couple of $1 million to assist us with our nursing program and also to help us bring back the respiratory therapy program to fulfill the workforce needs of this county. The college celebrated the renovation of the Florence Center and also broke ground on the Health Professions Building and the Industry Trades Education Center. And there's so much more. We are very excited about the year ahead. We're looking forward to an exceptional year to serve more students and the community. And that's my report.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Pocher. Next is the consent agenda. Obviously in board docs, we had access to various items on the consent agenda. Is there anything that would like to be removed from the consent agenda? Or pulled out of the consent agenda, rather? Yes. Oh, I apologize, Lisa.
I'll poke you in.
Mhm.
Got something to the side. So yes, I would like to pull item I, item J, and item K.
Once again, item I, item J, item K. Anything else? All right. Can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda, the remaining items in the consent agenda?
So move.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Excellent. Roll call vote.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond,
Aye.
Mike Ister,
Aye.
Austin Folnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel.
Aye.
Zach Mulholland.
Excellent. We'll address these in the order. Resolution I, which is resolution number 682. Lisa, did you have a?
Yeah, sure. And I'm not sure. I'll address my questions to Dr. Bolger. I was just hoping, there's really only one of these that I have significant questions about, but I was hoping that based on the fact that we have some new board members, if we could maybe have some context around the need for resolution number 682.
Yes, I thank you for that question. I'd like to ask Marlene Rocha to come to the podium here. And she is standing in for Interim Vice President Fahey. And Marlene, if you could give us some background on resolution number 682.
682 is the transfer between funds. We were supposed to present this prior to the budget being approved, and it was overlooked. So in order to be in compliance, we are presenting it today.
So if I recall during the budget process, I actually asked about this and because in the past, we had always dealt with the transfer of funds between the transfer of dollars between funds during the budget process. And the response that was given to me at that time was that we didn't know because we were still working on the budget. And I understand there were lots of challenges with figuring the budget out this year. So I guess I'm curious about what are the amounts that we are approving to transfer at this time? Because usually we would be able to see that in the budget and we don't. Did I miss it? I don't see.
They were in the proposed budget.
Okay.
And the only transfer that I'm recalling that was changed was the 700,000. If you recall that.
The $700,000 where?
It was from I believe it was Fund 8 to Fund 1.
Is that the professional development? Are those the professional development dollars for faculty?
That
Or the capital?
It was, I'm sorry, I'm gone blank now.
Excuse me, Member Fragala, is your question about passing this resolution, or would you like to perhaps, if it's the board's pleasure, for us to bring back the information related to this item? or to bring back this item. And is there any impact if the board, Marlene, does not approve this evening?
We are out of compliance.
Okay,
So we will, when we are audited, there will be a write-up on it.
okay. I guess I wanted to confirm that there weren't any changes that were being made in this resolution
So I'm trying.
based on what was in the budget and based on what's being presented here, but it's.
My understanding from Marlene, what she's saying tonight, is that there are no additional changes to
No.
the
Okay,
proposed
thank you.
budget. I think that's your question.
Yes, that is my
No-
question.
No
Thank you.
additional changes.
Okay.
Other than the, when we were going through the process, we decided not to move that one bucket of money. And then the approval was made. And and I have it here.
So just to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
My understanding from the conversation is that if we vote in favor of this resolution, we will be affirming what we voted on when we voted on the budget. Is that accurate?
That's what I'm asking. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, under those circumstances, I can vote for it.
Yeah, thank you
Mhm.
for that clarifying question.
Any other questions from the board? We can act either by making a motion to approve this.
I'll move that we adopt resolution 682.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. We'll do a roll. Sorry, Brett. I apologize, Brett.
Legal counsel Mike Blade has his hand up, but he doesn't have his camera on, so we don't see him on Zoom.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for making me aware of that. I appreciate that. All right. Michael Blade, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much. Yeah.
That's okay. My camera's not functioning well tonight. I just wanted to say that there are also legal penalties if you don't pass this resolution tonight. So yeah, we definitely need to pass the resolution. The other thing is the 700,000 was from faculty professional development. That was the number. So just wanted to make those 2 points.
Really appreciate that. Thank you. All right. So we have a motion and a second to pass this resolution. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond,
Aye.
Mike Ister,
Aye.
Austin Folnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
Aye.
Zach Mulholland.
Aye.
Excellent. We'll move on to resolution number 683.
Great, thank you. So again, if Marlene, if you could provide context for the need for this resolution and what it provides in terms of our budgeting process or our expenditure process.
Okay, interfund, we're looking at interfund borrowing instead of going for an additional loan if need be in the future. This next year, we would like to borrow the funds from ourselves. Therefore, tapping into Fund 9 and using the money that's available there that are being carried forward from the current year.
I would like to emphasize too that this is if needed. Those words that are in this agenda item are critically important. That's if needed. And this would be a borrowing. This would, if that were the case, and that would be returned to the Fund 9 in those areas.
Excellent. Any further questions?
Yeah.
Denise?
So it's on the basis of if needed, and are there certain funds that this would not apply to? And also, do we have some time guidelines of returning the money into it, and into whatever fund it was borrowed from? Are there timelines?
Gotcha. President Bulger or?
We would certainly, I don't believe that there are any requirements within this law. Perhaps Mike Blake can speak to that. I don't know that there are any requirements in terms of a certain period of time, but we certainly would do that as funds were available to be able to do that, my intention would be to keep Fund 9 whole.
Excellent. Michael Blade?
Yeah, there are no time requirements.
Would it be reasonable, and maybe you already had this in mind and intended to do this, Dr. Bulger, but I think it would be good if the board could be notified if you're indeed going to have to make the transfer at some point.
Mhm. We can certainly do that.
Excellent. That's noted. Lisa?
In my experience, fund balance transfers have always been something that has been approved by the board for a very clear intention. It has typically, in my experience in the past, been part of the budgeting process. And so I'm unclear why we're approving the 4.3 million and what the use will be for. I understand the budget that we're looking at, but I would like to have a better understanding of why we're making these fund transfers instead of just approving it for some generalized intent that we're not aware of what we're approving. I feel uncomfortable approving something when I'm not clear on what it's going to be utilized for. So I actually think I will not be supporting resolution number 683. I think that I'm not unsupportive of the transfer of funds, but I want to have more context and information for why I would be doing it.
So is there a reason why it needs to be approved tonight as opposed to when a need comes up that you would bring that to the board for approval at that time?
As far as legally, I would defer that to Mike.
Michael?
Yeah, there's no legal reason it has to be done tonight. My understanding was, and Dr. Bulger, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding of why we were doing this was this was part of our concern about the money coming from the legislature. So yeah, I don't think there's any absolute reason that we have to do it tonight.
If there's no legal reason for us to do it tonight, for the board to do this tonight, then certainly the board cannot do that. What this does, what it would have done would be to give us the authorization to do this interfund borrowing. That's what it would have done.
Understood. Mike?
Well, my preference is if we can borrow from ourselves as opposed to paying an outside lender interest rates, I would much rather do that. And if there's not a reason to have to do it tonight, my preference would be to wait until we know that we have a need and then have you present that to us. And that would not be an unusual activity or action for a board to take.
Yes. And with that, one of the actions we could take is to send this to a future board meeting for further discussion and presentation. Is that all right?
What we can certainly do whatever your pleasure is. Certainly, we can also do what I believe I heard as well, which is to bring this back at the time that we may need to borrow.
Okay.
In some case, yeah.
So just to clarify, at this moment, there is not a need to borrow from this $4 million. This is not going to is this going to make it so that you are now going to be using an interest-bearing creditor instead if we don't approve this tonight?
No.
Okay, thank you.
It's the pleasure of the board. We can move this to a future board meeting and we can move on to the next resolution item. Resolution item number 684. President's Annual Authorization 2023-2024.
Great, thank you. So I think this one is pretty straightforward, but again, Marlene, if you could provide context as to what this resolution implies, why it's important, and why we might consider passing it.
Actually, I'm going to pass this on to Laura.
Okay, great.
She has put this all together for us, and I'd like her to present, please.
Thank you.
And Laura, just because we have new board members, would you mind introducing yourself as well?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Ang. This is the first time I ever attend to the board meeting, and I see a lot of the new faces. And thank you so much for everybody. And then I'm a little bit scared, so support me, please. So every year that we have annual all the expenses over 150,000, we are taking the board approval for the regular payment or the some of the mandatory payment. And this year, under the guidance from the financial leadership, we are putting the over everything over 100,000 in the list, and then taking approval in head for the every clearance and transparency. And then most of them are like utilities and also the some of the software we have to use it for every year. So this is we are ready for the approval.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any questions, Lisa?
So this would not be applied to the usual board approval that's required to any contracts exceeding $150,000, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Oh, Mike.
I'm just a little bit puzzled about why I didn't quite understand why it's necessary. Does the president not have the authorization to make these expenditures currently?
Anything over 150.
Oh, all right. Okay, so I see.
And then this year we are putting over 100,000 for the according to the board guidelines.
Well, I guess the source of my confusion is that this seems to be sort of a random conglomeration of items, most of which are under $100,000. And so we've chosen to arbitrarily lump them together so that it's over 100,000. If we took them one at a time, they would be way under 100,000.
Yes, it could be more than 800,000. This is the projection number.
Excellent. Brett, did you have something to add?
So the annual estimated amounts for each of these vendors is listed at the end there. So you'll notice the first one is $175,000. And so each of these amounts are normal expenditures for the college. So this is a fairly common resolution for public entities to pass once a year, especially before you take a summer break or something like that, so that these expenditures can continue. Just hopefully that clarifies it a little bit.
It helps. Thanks.
Zach? So are we extending these contracts for a year or indefinitely?
Annual.
Oh, so it's 1 year. Okay, just to clarify. Thank you.
Mike?
I'd like to move approval of resolution 684.
Do we have a second? Oh, before we take the second.
Michael Blade has his hand up.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you indicating that. Michael.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that last thing. Some of these contracts are multi-year contracts. This is the yearly amount for a multi-year contract. We aren't necessarily extending any of these contracts. These are contracts that we're already on the hook for. And so this is just an opportunity to save you all a whole bunch of time. And we'd have to come, if we didn't do this, we have to come with each individual contract and have you approve it. And so these are all contracts that will happen over the course of the next fiscal year. And rather than come with each and every contract, because they're over 150,000, we're going to do them all in a lump sum. You'll still see multiple contracts over the next fiscal year that you'll have to approve, but these are ones that we know about. But again, we're not extending necessarily. This is just ones that this particular fiscal year is a part of the contract term.
Understood. Is there a second to Mike's motion?
I'll second.
Excellent. For purposes of discussion, Mike, I'll put myself in the queue, and Lisa, did you want to as well? Okay.
I would just like to clarify that my statement that these are all under 100,000 was way wrong. I look at them more carefully now and see that there is a need to pass this motion.
Understood. Just a clarifying question, Michael Blade, is the flexible spending, or maybe Brett can answer this, the flexible spending account, I believe it was the 11th item, where'd you go? There it is. A flexible spending account. Is that just a 1-year contract or, sorry, right below that? No.
Yeah, that's 1 year.
Oh, that's 1 year. Oh, fantastic. Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any further discussion? All right, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond,
Aye.
Mike Ister,
Aye.
Austin Folnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
Excuse me, aye.
Zach Mulholland.
Aye. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of the consent agenda. Appreciate everyone going through that and asking great questions. We'll move on to the action items here. The first one is the 2023-2024 board calendar. Has everyone had a chance to review that? Any additions, any motion or questions as well? Go ahead, Lisa.
I was curious if we had the opportunity to review this for any conflicts with Jewish holidays. I know we moved some board meetings last year for Jewish holidays. I mean, did we review it?
Yes, we did.
Oh, we did.
I think
Great.
Board Member Mattel.
Okay, awesome. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Great.
And I had one more thing.
Absolutely.
So I would like to make a proposal to the board, and it doesn't specifically have to do with the dates of the meetings, but I wanted to bring it up tonight, not necessarily for decision making, but to kind of put it out there for people to think about. And I'm hoping that perhaps we can come back to it at the retreat. A lot of boards are currently meeting, if they meet twice a month. I know of some boards that do the work session entirely in Zoom. So everybody attends in Zoom, and the board meeting in person. And I'd be interested in considering that for our board. I think we have some people that travel an hour or longer to get to board meetings. And even though we do our meetings hybridly, I guess that word can be an adverb, it's interesting when you're when you're a Zoomer and not a roomer in a hybrid meeting, right? And so I think in some ways it'll make the experience more inclusive and welcoming to our board members that might need to travel a distance or be a Zoomer rather than a roomer. And I also do think there could be some financial savings to us as a board if we do that. So I'm just kind of putting it out there for now, maybe something to reflect about, and, you know, potentially something to discuss with the president and reflect on at our board retreat.
Excellent.
But otherwise, I have no objection to this calendar.
Excellent. Do we have a motion for the calendar?
I'll move that we adopt this calendar.
And I'll second.
Excellent. And opportunity for discussion. I have a question for Michael Blade just to cue him up, but if there's any other questions. Michael Blade, in regards to Board Member Fragala's comments, is there rules in regards to purely Zoom meetings and with the new meeting laws that were passed, I believe, in the previous session?
Not that I'm aware of. I think you can still have purely Zoom. If you're talking about having everybody on Zoom, I think you can still do that as long as there's the ability for the public to view it and participate.
Gotcha. And is that both participation in person and through Zoom?
Well, if it's a full Zoom meeting, there wouldn't be any participation in person. There wouldn't be a in-person meeting, right? But
Gotcha.
yeah, you'd want if you're holding a hybrid meeting, you'd want both participation allowed through Zoom or in person.
Understood. Great. Thank you for that clarification. All right. Any other discussion? All right. We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond,
Aye.
Mike Ister,
Aye.
Austin Folnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
Aye.
Zach Mulholland.
Aye. All right. Board Member Fragala mentioned the board retreat. We also have the board retreat agenda. And do we have a motion to approve we can do discussion, or we can motion and then discussion. So, any questions to start off with? All right. No questions. Oh, question, Mike.
So it sounds like there's going to be a board leadership audit. Did we all get emails asking us to respond to a survey, or is that going to happen? Or
I would ask our Celia, Executive Assistant to the President, Liaison to the Board. The leadership audit is going to be taking place by the facilitator. Isn't that right?
I haven't received any survey from them, so I'm assuming they're going to be taken at the retreat.
Okay. Oh, I see. We'll do it right there on the spot. Okay.
I assume the location of the retreat will be here on campus.
There is a location. Is it a tentative location still, or is it a
We
permanent?
have recently confirmed the Longhouse for the retreat.
Wonderful.
Which is here on campus.
Longhouse, yeah. Mhm. Any further questions? I believe there was a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond, Mike Eister,
Aye.
Austin Folnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel,
Aye.
Zach Mulholland.
Aye.
Excellent. We'll move on to board member appointments to community organizations. Thank you for bringing that up. The first one is in regards to Lane Council of Governments, also known as LCOG. Mike Eister. So I believe how we traditionally do this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that if the individual that's currently in those roles, if they're still interested in serving in that role, if they want to indicate that, and if not, we can go on from there. So
I have served in that role. I have enjoyed that work and would like to continue.
Excellent. Any questions for Mike? And what we'll do is we'll indicate it. We'll just essentially pass this as one singular motion, essentially, for all these different appointments. With KLCC Radio, Holly Johnson, obviously no longer a board member. That's the star indicating that this is an open position. Is there anyone interested in serving in this role on this board with the KLCC?
I have a question about time commitment and what the role requires and just some information about that.
Absolutely. Dr. Butcher, who would be the best to answer that?
I will answer that.
Excellent.
I will attempt to, and I can certainly give you some more information after this meeting. KLCC radio, the liaison from the Board of Education to KLCC will entail sitting in on the meetings, the KLCC Foundation, KLCC board meetings, the KLCC board meetings. The frequency of meetings is something that maybe we can check on. I don't know if we can see that on the website, but I'll ask Brett Roulette to please check on that. But it would involve that essentially, is my understanding from board member Johnson in her working with that. There's also, it's not a requirement, but many of the board members who sit on these community appointments will also talk to the board at regular board meetings about what may have happened, if there are any updates related to these organizations.
Lisa?
Yeah, and Kevin, if I recall, Holly talking about that, I don't think it's a monthly meeting.
Thanks.
And I think it's an advisory board. It's not a policy board, if I recall.
It's the KLCC board. Is it called the foundation board?
Brett?
Right.
I believe so. I'm just doing my homework on their website, and they have a foundation board of directors listed. They don't have a frequency of meetings or any type of minutes published, though.
That's the second day.
Excellent. Any interest of any of the board members for the KLCC radio?
I'm hesitant just because of the time. I would want to get more information about what it would look like. So I'm not willing to say yes tonight.
And if Chair Folnagy, if there are no takers for this particular organization, we can certainly bring this one back.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yep. Looks like we'll go ahead and consider doing that. All right.
Just a question generally.
Yeah.
These are any of these obligatory for our board to send a designee, or are these sort of voluntary from commitments that we make? We're not obligated to fill all of or any of these.
That's my understanding is that this was a voluntary and decided by a board or a set of board members in times past. So these are not obligatory in any way. So perhaps there is a question to the board about whether a liaison to the KLCC radio would be beneficial. If you want my recommendation, I think that it would be. We can get you more information about frequency of meetings, time commitment, and all of that.
Excellent. Any other questions about KLCC radio? Seeing none. Oregon Community College Association. Obviously my name's up there. I recently got elected to vice president. Unfortunately, once I get elected to president, then the charter allows for additional representative to OCCA to be on there. So I'm advocating for the charter to include the vice president so that I would like to onboard someone to OCCA and the and so forth. I would love to offer any shadowing opportunities and opportunities to attend different meeting types. And obviously we got a retreat that's coming in September, or a training rather, that's coming in September. And there's other great ways to gain exposure to the Oregon Community College Association. So excellent. Next is the Lane. Oh, any questions before I move on from that? Okay. Lane Community College Foundation. Lisa?
Yes, so I have been serving on the LCC Foundation for a year now. It's another great organization. I enjoy it greatly. It's a great group of people who are very committed to the college. I've learned a lot from attending these meetings. I enjoy it greatly. I'm happy to continue, but I would also open it up to any other board member who might be interested as an opportunity to learn more about the great work that the foundation is doing.
Do you know the frequency of the meetings?
The frequency of the meetings are roughly every other month, and also participating in various events, as well as opportunities to increase the ability for the foundation to fundraise.
Are the meetings Zoomable?
They are hybrid, yes.
Okay.
Zoomers and roomers. So, but there's always great snacks, so I encourage people to attend.
Oh my
And if I
goodness.
recall, the meetings are on a Wednesday afternoon at 3:00 for about
That is
2
correct.
hours.
It is a daytime. It is a daytime thing. So I'm happy to continue, but I offer it as an opportunity to anyone who might be interested.
Excellent. Is any board member interested? Seeing none, Lisa? Excellent.
Okay, I'll continue.
We will go ahead and make, if there's at the pleasure of the board, a motion to reappoint these these positions for these organizations.
So I would like to amend the slate to indicate that Holly Johnson will no longer represent KLCC Radio and that position is vacant. But otherwise, I would move forward the remainder of the slate.
Second.
Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Yes, Kevin Alltucker,
Aye.
Denise Diamond, Mike Eister,
Aye.
Austin Folnagy,
Aye.
Lisa Fragala,
Aye.
Steve Mattel.
Aye.
Zach Mulholland.
Aye.
Excellent. Got through the first set of action items there. Now we're going to move on to discussion items. Bond Oversight Committee Annual Report.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to have Jennifer Hayward please come to the podium. The Bond Oversight Committee is Lane Community College's commitment to the voters in Lane County that passed a bond in May of 2020, which has helped us with $121.5 million. And we annually give an annual report that comes from the Bond Oversight Committee. And this is the report. Jennifer?
I'm going to make this one short. Chair Barnhart provided to you a letter essentially saying that the Bond Oversight Committee is pleased with the college's work in implementing the bond to date. And I'm just here to answer any questions that you have about that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Any questions by the board? Denise?
So I think we saw an orientation, maybe some things that had been originally flagged or allocated. For example, there's something for Florence, this mobile tech unit, but final decisions have not been made on certain items. Would that be, do I have that accurate, that there's still some pending allocation on funds?
I don't, a couple things. I don't think that the mobile CTE unit was originally for Florence exactly. It was for rural communities in Lane County. But also, I'll be going into that in a lot more detail in the very next presentation. So if you don't mind. Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
But that was an example of one.
Yeah.
But there are other items.
There are
allocated bond money. Would that be an accurate statement?
There are others, and that's basically what my next presentation is about.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
Well, just for clarity, my understanding is that prioritization of items that we're going to spend money on for the bond is not the purview of the Bond Oversight Committee. Rather, the Bond Oversight Committee is to assure that we're spending the money in which the way we promised to spend it.
That's correct. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if there's questions about priorities, that would probably be also addressed in your next.
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent. Any questions about the annual report, though, before we move on to critical facilities? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the critical facilities projects and remaining bonds funds.
Thank you, Jennifer. Please.
Thank you. Brett, would you mind bringing up my presentation? And next slide, please. Thank you. So I wanted to, this presentation is about critical facilities projects and remaining bond funds. As you saw tonight, that there's advocacy for what we should spend some of the remaining bond funds on, and you'll probably hear advocacy from others. And so tonight we're going to talk about what we said in the ballot measure, what we had originally planned, what we have budgeted to implement now, what those remaining unallocated funds are, and sort of the top list of critical projects that to think about as we make decisions. And not making any decisions tonight, this is just kind of the starting path on this journey. So here, this first slide is the first page of the 2-page ballot measure that was published in the voters pamphlet. And I won't read all of this out loud. You had a chance to review this, but it just gives you kind of an idea of the things that we told voters that we would do. Extend the life of aging facilities, update technology, district-wide earthquake upgrades, update science lab. The mobile manufacturing lab is in there. Next slide. And this page is a little bit repetitive, but again, I highlighted the pertinent details, updating learning spaces, expansion of LCC's health professions programs, facilities improvements, et cetera. So next slide. And then this slide, I apologize, it's a little hard to read. Hopefully it was easier for you to read on your computer screen. But this is a repeat of what I presented at our last meeting in April, and that what I also presented to the new board member training a couple weeks ago. And so on the left side are the bond projects that were essentially planned, what we would spend our money in before the bond measure was passed. And then the right side is the current status of our implementation. And I will point out a couple things, particularly the things that are highlighted. So on the left side, you'll see a cybersecurity line item highlighted there. That was a mistake that I made in my last presentation in April. I didn't have that line item there. And I added that in. So that's just wanted to highlight that to let you know. And then on the right side, the items that are highlighted in green are the things that are already underway. So I'll skip down to building 16 major maintenance. We have an architect hired for that project. It's in design. It's looking like we're going to get the $8 million from the state for that one to supplement our $16 million budget from the bond. As you know, the new health professions building is in construction, and the new ITech building is in construction as well. And the reason why the public safety relocation is also highlighted is because that needs to be done in conjunction with the new ITech building and demolition of building 12, because it's currently located in building 12. So that's why I have it highlighted as a currently underway project. A few items you see that are highlighted in yellow are because we don't have a current budget associated with them, but as I note in the notes within their area, we've transferred and are doing that work within other things. So infrastructure repairs originally had a budget of $2 million. Well, the ITech project includes significant college-wide infrastructure repairs. We're replacing our entire campus compressed air system as part of that project. So that budget moved to the ITech project budget. So that's just an example. I won't go over all of those one by one, but that's the yellow highlighted ones. And then you'll see that the remaining non-allocated funds right now are 5.4 million, and something to think about as we consider where to allocate those funds is that the project's underway. I mean, hopefully nothing will happen, but it's possible that we may need a contingency more than the contingency that we already planned if something comes up. So we may want to consider holding on to those funds for now. Okay, next slide. So these are the items from the original bond plan that aren't currently budgeted and that could be supported by that 5.5 approximately remaining budget. The mobile fabrication lab, which I talked about earlier, and the cybersecurity program lab. In addition, the baseball field and the building 2 seismic projects. And one thing I wanted to note is that the mobile fabrication lab and the cybersecurity program were both specifically called out in the voters pamphlet. The baseball field, turf, and building 2 seismic were not, but the baseball field would have been done under the heading of extending the life of aging facilities, improving facilities, reconstruct aging facilities. So it would have been in that bucket within the voters pamphlet. And then building 2 seismic would have been done under the bucket of district-wide earthquake upgrades. That one's pretty obvious. Okay, next slide. And then this one is the remaining items from the facilities master plan. And hey, Austin, do you have an unopened water? I'm struggling. I need.
Oh, brand new here.
Brand new.
There you go.
No, thank you.
Good for you for asking.
Thank you.
Take a moment.
Thank you. Okay, so sorry. This I also presented back in April, and the 2020 bond was never meant to cover everything in the master plan. It was a 10 to 15 year plan that involved passing another bond measure and getting grants and fundraising, et cetera. So don't be shocked that you're not seeing all of the needs being met by the 2020 bond. That's just a refresher. But this shows the things in the master plan that still need to be done, that will still need to be done after this bond work is done, those things are circled in red. And then the things that are circled in blue are things that we are partially getting done with this bond measure, but not 100% fully. Okay, next slide. Seismic needs. So this is a long list that's probably a little bit hard to look at, but on the bright side, we have done completed the seismic upgrades to buildings 4, 10, 11, 18, 19, the center building and the Florence Center. So a lot has been done. Still to be done with the 2020 bond or buildings 12 and 16. So you don't see those on the list because we already have a plan to get those done. Okay, next slide.
So Jen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you saying that we need to find $22 million out of this current?
No,
Can you go back to the-
I'm just saying this presentation is about needs that are still
I see.
hanging out.
All right.
there.
Okay.
We're not, yeah,
Thank you.
we need to figure out how to prioritize them.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, next slide. Thank you. So this slide and the next two slides are the facilities deferred maintenance priorities, our top 25 list. And I won't review and go over these in detail, but I will say we prioritize these items based on the degree and likelihood of danger, risk, as well as the impact of catastrophic facilities failures would have on students. And one other prioritization factor was our ability to continue patching and repairing something versus something that we just can't repair anymore. So one example is electrical feeder wire, $2 million. The risk of that is if we have about 5 electrical feeder wires on campus, they all serve about 5 buildings each. If one of them, and they're all about 60 years old, 50, 60 years old as the campus. So if one of them went out, we would have 5 or 6 buildings that were completely dead with electricity. So that would be a real catastrophic failure. And there's not a kind of patch or quick fix that you can do on those things. They're either working or they're not. The center building exterior walkway structural issues, I just have this in a draft report from an engineer. So this is a pretty rough estimate. I'm expecting the final report within the next couple weeks, but they did find some pretty serious structural repairs that we need to do. Building 2 data center is a priority 8. I'll just comment on that one that that is very important. If we didn't have air conditioning in our data center, that would basically kill our servers and our data. The reason why it's a priority 8 and not higher is because that is something that I think that we can keep operating for a little while longer, but that's why it's not maybe a number 3 priority, but it does need to be done in the near future. Let's look at the next slide.
Steve?
Jennifer, just a quick question. I was looking on the slide above. Their remaining buildings needing seismic retrofits include building 2, which I think what you just said is where the data center is.
Mhm.
If we were to have a catastrophic event, I presume we would lose our data center, presumably?
Yes, and somebody from IT would be able to answer this better than me, maybe Shelley, but I believe that we have data backed up in some other locations too. But it would still be a significant loss. Also, one other thing to note is I did apply for the Oregon State seismic grant twice. And it was denied twice for building 2. The college has gotten grants for other buildings, 11, 18, and 19, and the Florence Center. We've gotten grants for all of those, but they've denied building 2 because it's half offices and IT services and half classrooms, and they really prioritize buildings that are 100% student use.
Is there value to keeping the data center, the primary data center on campus? Would we be better off, so-called putting it in the cloud away from outside of Cascadia?
That's a good question. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a
Thank you.
great question and I am serving in the capacity as the Associate Vice President of IT. With that said, it's been learning very quickly and on the job. It is my understanding that institutions are moving towards mostly cloud-based storage. There is a need, I think at this point in time, for continued storage here on campus. But you're absolutely correct, Steve. That is the movement that institutions are going. And I think with our new Vice President of IT, he will be able to address that information much better than I can.
Steve, if you want to just go to Brett, the next slide. And so that's all my slides. Like I said, we don't have to make any decisions today, but I just wanted you to be aware of kind of all of the things to think about when we're thinking about how to spend the remaining bond funds.
Is that excellent? Any questions, Denise?
So the very rough cost estimates are 6 months old, a year old, 2 years old.
So in the cases of the ones that are from older engineering reports, we did do cost escalating. So they're current, pretty current. Yeah.
Steve?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So just looking at the list of deferred maintenance and wildly exceeds what we have left in the bond. I think that's sort of the main point. Can you just remind us, right, there is another bond that will soon, the payments will soon sunset. Can you give us a sense of those timings? Because that's when we might go and ask Lane County voters to extend it or to keep that money going. So there may be opportunities the board ought to be aware of as to when to time those those asks.
My recollection is that it sunsets in 2027, but that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Excellent.
And I'm here for you. I'm ready to plan for it.
Lisa?
Great to hear. So if it sunsets in 27, we would begin planning in 25
or sooner.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have another.
I did start planning for the 2020 bond in 2017.
Okay, great. So 2 questions. One, you'll probably know for sure. So the ADA needs that are being incorporated into Florence Health Professions, iTech and Building 16 projects, are those locations the only areas that we are addressing ADA needs on campus, or are we also addressing ADA needs in other locations?
Largely with the bond, those are going to be the areas. One, there's a few other things. We're adding a couple of those main pathways associated with the projects, and those will help with ADA needs. And then our classroom modernization project that's in there will also help with ADA needs in classrooms campus wide.
Okay, great. And then my second question Dr. Bulger, you may know more specifically. The foundation has been talking about having a capital project, and there are very specific goals to that. But I am curious about any of the things on this list possibly addressed by that, and potentially when might the board hear more about that?
I'll take the last, thank you so much. I'll take the last question first, and the board will hear more about the feasibility study and the results of that feasibility study in early fall. We're thinking September could be the earliest. You may recall that, and for the new board members, that feasibility study was going to be a 6-month study. We're probably in about the second month or so of that 6 months. And so I will have the consultant come to the board. I believe it's September when we have it on an agenda as a placeholder right now. As looking at these kinds of deferred maintenance projects, I can't say specifically whether or not any of these would be considered to be in that capital campaign. Just given the nature of some of these, the capital campaign is really around visioning, which the board looked at in December of last year, and that the visioning and goals that the board set were around positioning Lane to be the workforce hub of Lane County and beyond, and student success, and also catalyzing innovation. And so can't say that some of these perhaps could be part of that capital campaign, but it really is forward-looking.
And so we got Kevin and Denise. Just to clarify, the capital campaign was through the foundation, right?
The LCC Foundation.
Appreciate that clarification. Kevin?
Thanks. Yeah, Jennifer, thanks for your report. Two questions. One, tell us again about the structural engineering report on the center building, when that, the status of that and when you expect to receive that.
Yeah. So it's not in the center building exactly. It's on the elevated platforms around the second level of the center building. And we expect to receive the final report, I would say, by the end of next week.
Great. And then the second question is, how much of the original bond was set aside for construction contingencies?
We have contingency with budget within each project already. And then the original bond, about 10%, but we have used some of that up because of cost overruns with other projects because of construction cost escalation.
So our construction cost escalations, are they included in the bucket of contingencies, or is that a separate?
Could you go back to that one slide that lists all the projects?
And just really briefly, fellow board members, we are about to reach our allotted time. May I recommend that we give an additional 5 minutes to the agenda item? Excellent. Thank you.
Luckily, the last one took a lot less time. So.
No worries. No worries.
The one with the go up a few. A couple more. There we go. This one. Okay, so ask your question again. I think this slide will help me answer it.
Well, the original question was how much, roughly either in percentage or actual dollars was set aside for construction contingencies, and our cost escalations included in that.
Right. So every project on the left originally had, there's a contingency within it of about 10%. And then the projects on the right, the ones that aren't done yet, still have contingencies within them. And we had budgeted originally in the bond for about 4% escalation per year, but it's been about 10. So that's been eating up our overall bond contingency. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I heard you say that you had applied for a grant for the seismic redo of one of the buildings. So I'm wondering, have other grants been applied for in relationship to all of this? And if so, how many, and where are we at with? We got the money. And didn't get the.
Yeah. Since the 2020 bond passed, we have two large state grants applied to the bond. One is an $8 million grant for the Health Professions Project, and one is an $8 million grant for the Building 16 project. Those are state capital construction grants. And then we've also gotten grants for Building 19 seismic, Lawrence seismic, and oh gosh, I feel like there's one more seismic that I'm forgetting about right now. Sorry, I had that in my notes, but my computer just died. But at least 2 or 3 seismic projects.
So are you the only grant writer?
For the seismic, I've been the one, and I've had help with the capital ones. It's been a team effort.
We've been awarded 4 or 5 grants related to facilities. Would that be accurate?
For this bond, yeah.
Thanks. Zach?
Can you go to the list of the things that might get funded through the last remaining bond funds? I think you just.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the slides are kind of say that, but maybe one up. Brett, this may be the one you were thinking of.
Yeah, so what will be the process then to determine which of these items get funded through the remaining bond funds versus some future revenue source?
I would like to recommend that we, myself and the bond team, bring that back to you at a future meeting.
Thank you. And then can you go to the list of deferred maintenance projects? Number 10, the central plant boilers and expansion tanks. Are those currently natural gas boilers?
Yes.
Is the assumed replacement also natural gas boilers?
With that budget, yeah.
I would like to revisit what the replacement would be prior to us moving forward with that item. So might be years and years away, but I would like to approach have a discussion. Thank you.
Excellent. Noted.
That looks like one of the largest.
Yeah. I'm going to put myself in the queue for a question. The mobile CTE lab facilities, I believe it's a couple slides up. It was mentioned that these were for rural communities. Yeah. Can you describe a little bit more about that? That's okay.
This wasn't part of the facilities master plan. This was something that was added onto the bond plan that I didn't have a lot to do with. So if anybody else in the room knows more about it than I do, please, please jump in. But my understanding, the original thought was that we would have a CTE type lab that would have welding and other kinds of advanced technology type instructional modalities inside of it. And it would travel to rural communities and help people gain skills in those areas. Maybe a certificate. It certainly wouldn't be an AA degree.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Questions? That was an excellent presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the water.
Thank
you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mike. All right, next for discussion items, OCC BP 7600, Lane Community College Campus Safety, and Michael Blade and Lisa.
Yeah, Brett, can you pull that attachment up?
And Michael, would you like to start or is Lisa starting?
Well, I thought I would just introduce the issue and then let Lisa talk because she has the expertise for it, but I just want to point out no, I was looking for the actual board policy.
7600.
7600, not the crosswalk. So while Brett's pulling that up, there we go. So if you look in the so just for background for the new board members, so this particular board policy was brought at the work session, and I had run this by Chief Rupp prior to bringing it to the work session, and she had made some suggested changes. At the work session, former board member Angela Van Kraus suggested in the use of force paragraph, us changing it from reasonable force. Where it says to use the minimum amount of force necessary, that used to read to use reasonable force in any situation. Trustee Van Kraus had looked up the definition of reasonable force and had seen the definition was the minimum amount of force necessary, and it proposed that we change that language. Between then and now, Chief Rupp, we passed that by Chief Rupp again, and I think she wants to discuss that change with the board. So that's my way of introducing Chief Rupp.
Excellent.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, Dr. Bolger and members of the board, and welcome to the new board members and Lisa and Mike. Or Steve, sorry. So when Mike brought this to my attention, I only had a few minor language changes, and I don't have or take issue with the board policy in general, I think it's great and I think that it's necessary. But with the change from reasonable use of force to minimal use of force, I feel that it doesn't align itself with the Oregon revised statutes on use of force by officers, and also the Department of Public Safety standards and trainings, the board that governs private security, that also says reasonable force. And so I think that changing the verbiage would make a huge difference in, I guess, the law. I guess I would need to know more what the thought is behind minimal use of force. And I understand probably the thought process around it. And so I guess I would just like to start by saying that our department policy talks about force that is objectively reasonable and necessary. And I would like to point out that, and I went back probably to 2016, and our officers have only used force in 4 instances. And I know I have 10 minutes, but I would like to read those for you all. We had an officer that physically removed a suicidal student out of the road because they wanted to get hit by a vehicle. And the officer placed their hands on the person to move him out of the road until cahoots could come and chat with the individual. In another instance, a person that was under the influence of methamphetamine spit in an officer's face and then attempted to assault them. That officer, along with their shift mate, arrested the individual, and Lane County Sheriff came and took them and lodged them into Lane County Jail. And then the other 2 instances were from individuals that committed theft and were given an opportunity to either return the items and leave campus, in which they refused to do so and would not return the property. And in the latter 3 incidents that I mentioned, none of those persons were students nor persons of color. And I recognize that in this day and age, it's really important to make these types of policies and statements. And I want you to know that our officers, we have a strict policy on use of force and how that force can be applied. And we by no means want to put hands on anyone ever. We like to use our words, and we get people to comply by doing that, and through all of our de-escalation training and any types of training in which we're talking to individuals that we're trying to gain compliance from. Our main concern is that, the public trusts us and are confident in our officers' actions. And we've never had an officer conduct themselves in an unprofessional manner in which, one could claim that they used excessive force. So our use of force is mainly us standing in uniform. That is considered a form of use of force. And then we use our words. That's another form of use of force. So rarely do we ever have to put our hands on anyone. We have pepper spray and we carry batons, and pepper spray is less lethal, and a baton can be a lethal tool. We have never in the history of having those items have we ever use them on anyone, because we are very good at using our words. We don't want to hurt anyone, and we don't want any of our officers hurt. Now, with that said, by putting minimum use of force in there, it can create a situation that could cause an officer to think longer than necessary before acting in an instance in which they did need to use force. And that is protecting themselves, protecting someone from hurting themselves, or protecting someone from hurting someone else. And in that instance, by putting the word minimum, I don't want to create a situation in which an officer takes too much time to decide on whether they're going to get in trouble for using said force. Does that make sense? I just wanted to take the time to come and talk to you. And the other thing that the officers are trained in is disparity in that use of force. For instance, let's say, one of our officers, because we have an officer that's extremely tall and he's a big guy. Now, if I will use Dr. Bulger, if Dr. Bulger committed a crime and he had to arrest her, the force that he would have to use on Dr. Bulger would be so minimum, right? Now, let's say Dr. Bulger's the officer and Dr. Bulger had to somehow arrest Austin. Now, she would have to use more force than that other officer would on Dr. Bulger. So I just wanted to point out that the officers are very well trained in this. They have defensive tactics refreshers. We have continuing education on use of force and the law regarding that.
For the record, I'd be in full compliance. Well, before we go to discussion, I wanted to ask Michael Blade if he can actually describe the legal definition in regards to reasonable and minimal use, and then we'll go to Mike. Michael, do you have a definition for that?
Yeah, so I'm looking at this. I pulled up the statutes when Chief Rupp started talking, and there's nothing in any of the statutes that I can find, albeit a very, very quick look, that talks about minimum. Everything in the statute talks about reasonable force. So just to give you an example, in ORS 161.205 1B, it says personnel of a public education program, as that term is defined, may use reasonable physical force upon a student when and to the extent application of force is consistent with, and it refers to other ORS sections. So I think reasonable force really is the term that is used commonly in the Oregon statutes. There may be a place where minimum force is mentioned, but I have, like I said, in my quick scan, I haven't been able to find it.
All right. Before we continue, just need to have just make sure that we move to extend. We've usually a lot of time, unfortunately. Is everyone okay with additional 5 minutes on the topic? Excellent. Great. Mike, I believe you're next.
So I have three questions that are sort of peripherally related. One is that I'm assuming that our officers do not carry firearms. Is that an accurate assumption?
Correct.
The second thing is I'm wondering if we make traffic stops. I think I've seen traffic stops before, but that's been a while ago, and I don't know what our current stance is. And then I have a third question as well.
We rarely make traffic stops. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You've used the word arrest a couple of times, and I'm not sure, does that mean detain? And does that mean?
We do not detain, we arrest. And
So I don't know what that means.
so we don't have probable cause arrest authority. So if a crime happens in our presence, we can arrest. And it's a citizen's arrest because we are not sworn law enforcement.
So
so
you tell the person they're under arrest,
And we have to arrest them, yes.
and that means you call a
That means we
commission.
place them into custody. We put handcuffs on them and arrest them, yes.
Okay. And then is there follow-up by?
Yes, we call law enforcement we always call law enforcement.
Okay.
Because we can't unarrest someone. Only law enforcement can do that. So if we place someone under handcuffs because we've arrested them, because we've seen them commit a crime, we cannot take the handcuffs off them.
Thanks.
So if I'm not mistaken, there are minors that attend LCC, probably not many, but there are some. Would that be accurate?
That's accurate.
Yeah. So how do you manage that?
We call their guardian if needed.
If there's any questions or concerns?
Yes. obviously, minors commit crimes too. So if it was, if it were, I can give you a scenario, right? Let's say they commit an assault. We can arrest them. Even if they're minors, but we generally, we don't arrest people all the time. So we generally like to avoid doing that. And we only do it when necessary. But, for instances where we've had instances where we've had to talk with minors' guardians, or we would talk with the instructor or the dean. We don't deal with minors so much so anymore that we don't have a high school program on campus. We used to have a high school program on campus, but we would talk with 4J's principal. And so they would handle that because they have their own security. With the folks with developmental disabilities that are on campus that work through the specialized support program, we've had instances where they've taken things from the Titan store. They've, done some interesting things. And so we would contact their program manager. So we like to inform and educate first. We don't want to, we don't want to put hands on people, and we only do that when absolutely necessary.
Thanks. Zach?
It's just to clarify, if we were to pass board policy 7600, so how would that be changing from the current practice? What would actually be the change if we were to adopt this?
If you left minimum use of force in there?
Well, my understanding is that this was in the context of the board potentially approving BP 7600. Am I?
It was a discussion item of essentially whether, Michael, do you want to correct?
The current proposal includes the use of minimum force.
Yeah.
So if we were to pass it, it would include the use of minimum force.
Exactly. And currently it's a discussion item.
What are we changing from?
It was reasonable.
It was reasonable.
Yes.
So the one change that we're talking about making is reasonable.
Just
to
one
minimum.
word.
The current
Makes a
standard
huge difference.
is as it's written minus minimum.
The
is current
original policy said reasonable, and a board member at the last meeting suggested changing it to minimum.
Okay, my understanding is that we were updating this policy before the minimum change, or is that the only change that's taking place is the minimum change?
At this time, that's what we're
I'm-
discussing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. And again, this is just a discussion item at this point. I want to provide a little bit more grace period here if there's any further discussion on this item or any additional questions. Steve?
Well, I'll just put it out there to, colleagues on the board that, I guess I find Lisa's concerns compelling, right? That given that our officers, your officers don't, you did say they carry batons that could be lethal, but I think for most of us, most of the time, we think of guns and tasers as sort of the more lethal options. And I think what you're telling us is they carry neither of those. So given that what the tools that they have at their disposal significantly limit the physical impact they could cause to somebody else in the moment as they're trying to make a decision, that we've already, we've already kind of addressed the issue to an extent, not perfectly. And I find the concern that introducing the term minimum will, in this day and age, will cause an officer to second guess, oh gosh, am I going to get in trouble? And, et cetera, et cetera. It's not an easy one to decide, I get that too, but I find the testimony compelling, and I think would defer to our experts in the field, so to speak, with their request if and when it comes to a board action item.
I would also, before we go further, I would like to make a comment that in our current use of force policy in our department, chokeholds are not allowed. Knees to the neck, anything that constricts a person's breathing is not allowed.
Denise?
do we have history or incidents around athletic events and rival teams? Or is that something we don't really deal with here at
It's,
LTC?
no, it's not. That's not usually an issue. I
Excellent.
don't think in my 26 years here, I've ever had only a baseball to the face by a line drive. That's it.
Oh, boy.
Okay, and just one other follow-up. I am familiar with what the organization, if I'm pronouncing it right, Cahoots?
Cahoots, yep.
Cahoots here in Eugene. I don't think, I know we don't. Well, anyway, in addition to using them as a resource, what is the mental health training that we have or the go-to for mental health here on campus?
I'm glad you asked. The college has a mental health and wellness center, and we often refer and walk people over to see them. We also take folks to counseling. And we've had training from Cahoots and Whitebird, the Whitebird Clinic on de-escalation. We're currently sending our officers through a 40-hour crisis intervention team training, which is a similar model as Cahoots uses with Eugene Police and Springfield Police. Yeah, that's
very commendable. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other last minute questions or any additional?
Well, are you looking for guidance from us tonight, or would you like us to weigh in one way or another, or?
So the Chair Folnagy, the board can move this item to the next regular meeting action item on the agenda as an action item, because this is in the discussion items section.
And I'm sorry, I'm just still learning. So I would just appreciate more information, maybe as a follow-up later, around relationship between your department and the Eugene Police Department. What's the command structure? Are we underneath them in terms of a command structure in a case of an emergency, or how does that? Or you're not armed officers, so you wouldn't be responding to a shooting or something like that anyway. Is that my understanding?
Thank you for asking that question. We here on main campus, we're under the jurisdiction of the Lane County Sheriff's Office. And then downtown it's Eugene, and then we have Florence and then Cottage Grove Police. We're not under them just because we're employed here with Lane Community College, but we work closely with our law enforcement partners on arrests, reports, any thefts. We're required to share our crime reports with them, any evidence that we gather on campus. But we work closely with all of them.
Excellent. And I know Michael Blade has hand up, I assume, to answer that question as well.
Actually, no, I was Lisa did a great job on that. I was just going to say on what I'm looking for here is guidance on whether you want to keep that language or go back to reasonable force. And then we would bring this back at a future full meeting in the consent agenda for adoption. Ideally, that would be ideal.
Excellent for the clarification. Steve, and then Lisa.
That's where I was going to go. Like, if we could perhaps take a straw poll to get a sense of where the board is, so that staff know whether to bring this back, as currently proposed with the minimum force language, or as it was previously with the reasonable force language.
Okay. Lisa, then we'll have
I was going to suggest that we not bring it back in a consent agenda, but that we bring it back as part of the next group of policies that we again review in our work session. And then that would allow additional time for discussion. I would also like to request having submitted to the board as part of the information related to that, the policy that you referenced in your comments around the use of force.
Excellent. And
I had one other follow-up just around body cameras. Do you currently use body cameras?
do.
Thank you very much.
excellent. So is it the pleasure of the board to bring this up in the consent agenda? Or to, what?
Like Lisa's idea.
Lisa's idea, excellent, great. So in consent, all right, great. We have a next step for that. All right.
Thank you.
No, thank
Thank
you.
you
Really
very
appreciate you. On to reports. Lane, Student Government Association report. Smith. Thanks.
We are just checking in to see whether the new Student Government Association president is on Zoom. But I'll ask Dr. Joyce to.
Sawyer Smith, are you up there?
Sawyer Smith, thank you.
Doesn't appear to be. He was invited and said he would be here tonight to give a report out. I do apologize. Sawyer Smith just started in the role as SGA president for the future year, and he's replaced Nick R, who's moved on as a transfer student at the University of Oregon. And he is going to be leading a new SGA Student Government Association. I will ask if he can maybe send an introductory email or something like that to the board to introduce himself. Asked him if he would speak about his background, what he's doing here. I believe he's involved kind of computer applications. And he's very much he's going to be a different type of student leader to the car. He's got his very own way of being, and I think he'll really add to our cabinet.
Fantastic.
I will ask him to.
Perfect. Lisa,
Could you repeat that name and perhaps spell it? Not the Smith part, but.
Sawyer, like as in Tom Sawyer.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
excellent, great. We'll move on from that. Thank you, Dr. Joyce. LCC EA report.
Good evening, members of the board and President Balger. I have a few topics to report on this evening. First, I would like to extend congratulations and a most warm welcome to new board members, Denise, Kevin, and Zach. And congratulations to re-elected board members, Lisa and Steve. We deeply appreciate your willingness to serve the people of Lane County as members of the board and look forward to your leadership. A couple of other topics I will address. One is our all faculty survey results. I provided some information in June about a couple of timely topics, the health clinic and shared governance, and I wanted to provide further details from our all faculty survey that was conducted during spring term. 248 faculty members participated in the survey, which is a 61.1% response rate from all of the part-time and full-time faculty working in spring. Regarding the campus student health clinic, 78.3% of faculty support or strongly support maintaining student access to the clinic, with 70% indicating strong support. And regarding shared governance, which is also a timely topic, 84.2% support or strongly support maintaining the role of decision-making in the governance system, with 70.9% indicating strong support. We hope you will take into consideration the faculty viewpoint on these issues, and you will find details on these items with graphs of the results in my written report that I will follow up and send you after the meeting. I wanted to share also on behalf of faculty a request regarding labor relations. As we have time to reflect over the summer and prepare for the next academic year, we are asking you in your role as board members to provide guidance to encourage collaboration and a proactive, productive approach to labor relations going forward. We believe this is important not only for employee morale, but also for campus climate more generally, which impacts our college and community beyond. We're concerned about the dramatic increase in labor disputes stemming from a lack of understanding or adherence to our contract, which has also had a deleterious impact on the college's fiscal condition. According to information provided by the administration in response to a public information request, In FY '21, the college spent slightly less than $20,000 on outside attorneys for counsel on labor issues related to faculty, then $107,000 in FY '22 and more than $141,000 in this past year, for a total of nearly $270,000 in 3 years, with more than one half of that amount in the last year alone. We believe that a shift to productive and collaborative approach to labor relations is in the best interest of the campus and community. Thank you kindly for your consideration of this request for your leadership. And some good news, as I try to, as much as possible, end on a positive note. According to institutional research, enrollment is up more than 17% and 15% for summer and fall terms, respectively. This is promising, especially at this time, given that every 1% of enrollment increase equates to a little bit more than $254,000 in revenue. So a 10% increase above the adopted budget would amount to an additional revenue of more than $2.5 million over the course of the year. In addition, we are absolutely thrilled that the Oregon legislature has made a substantial investment in our community college system for this biennium, with a 13.8% increase for community colleges, which will bring $2.2 million in additional funding for LCC each year for the next 2 years. The legislature has also passed an enhancement for part-time faculty healthcare. The state will now be providing funding for vision and dental care for part-time faculty who are eligible, in addition to the medical coverage that was passed a couple of years ago. This means that LCC will receive additional funding to offset healthcare expenses. Furthermore, needs-based funding for students through the Oregon Opportunity Grant has been increased by $100 million. This is most welcome news for LCC and all community colleges. We're really, really excited about these investments, and LCCEA is committed, as always, to advocacy for sufficient community college funding for our students and our communities, and appreciate everyone's efforts in bringing these increases to fruition. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm very sorry I could not be there in person this evening.
Thank you very much. Next, a report from LCCEF. Frankie, there you are.
Good evening. Nice to see everybody. For those who haven't met me yet, my name is Frankie Kokenor. I'm the president of LCCEF, which is a classified professional employees union. I'd like to welcome Denise Diamond, Zach Mulholland, and Kevin Alltucker to the board. The classified union is really excited to work with you, and we hope that your experience working on the board is for the betterment of the college and will be one of the best experiences that you'll have with our community. I would also like to take an opportunity to congratulate Austin Folnagy as the new chair for the board and Lisa Fragala as the vice chair. Earlier tonight, our baseball coach, Josh, spoke to you about the men's baseball team not having a field that they can play on. This not only affects employees, but this seriously affects our students. We're supposed to be making this college a positive place for students to come and learn and earn degrees and participate in student activities and sports. In this instance, I think it's sad to hear that our kids are having to travel 52 games, along with keeping up with all of their studies. I hope that the board is able to actively collaborate with Josh and help him with getting the field ready for our students. It would be nice to have our more students seeing our college and seeing that we've put in a new field for them to practice and play on, and hopefully it'll increase enrollment just by a little bit. As a reminder, LCCEF and the college are currently bargaining our current contract with the college, and that's the entire contract. And we will continue to do this throughout the summer. We're hoping to have a contract to present to you this fall. For our new board members, I would like to take a time to remind you of who the classified professionals are. We are the ones that are helping students both in person and online with last minute schedule changes, getting them into classes and making sure that they're able to access resources. We're processing financial aid and paying student accounts, as well as sending living expenses that help them stay in school. We're caring for the grounds, making sure that the campus looks beautiful. We're assisting students with medical issues and mental health to help them stay healthy and stay enrolled, keeping IT systems running in the background for students and faculty in their classes, and in the many ways that keep things running and organized behind the scenes, securing and keeping our campus safe, answering questions, guiding next steps, and helping with any challenges, getting students connected with resources outside of class to successfully progress through their education, and doing more than I can even begin to mention here. So thank you very much. And I hope everybody has a good evening and a wonderful summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our reports. Next is information reports. We've had a chance to review those through board docs. Does any of the board members have any questions about any of the reports submitted? Seeing none. Oh, Lisa.
Yes, I do. I guess this would be for finance and operations. Sue Fahey is not here. Would it be possible for me to state my questions and then receive some follow-up information from her?
We would like for you to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. So in a recent communication from the president, our interim VP of Finance and Operations sent some information regarding the 23-24 budget. And some of that was reflected on within LCCEA's report as well. I'm really glad to hear that the fourth quarter funding has come through and that there'll be no additional external financing that will be required, which means we don't have any interest to be paid. And so I'm hoping I'm correct in that assumption. So I think having some additional information about that would be helpful. Additionally, she also commented on the Oregon legislature providing an additional $2 million in funding to the college for the 23-24 budget. And I understand that the current budget is being reprinted. So I'm interested in seeing what that looks like in the context of the budget, the changes to the budget that we initially passed, as well as the 17% enrollment. I'm interested in having that calculation done. I heard that 1% of enrollment is $254,000 increase. And so I'm curious, what is the impact on our budget situation from that money, in addition to knowing what are the savings that we are going to have from the additional funding for the new funding from the state legislature for healthcare costs that we no longer have to provide to faculty. So I'm looking for, we have this, I don't know if liquid or fluid is the correct word, but I'm looking for an update on these different things, as well as some context around the protocols that are being utilized to move the process forward. My understanding, and this would be more to you, Dr. Bolger, my understanding was that we would be discussing those protocols at our retreat with our new board members, and that we hadn't approved protocols at this time.
Thank you for the questions, and we will certainly address those questions. And what we do generally for the new board members, we take the questions and then we respond to them, and we send that information out to the full board so that the full board is aware of that. Can you please share with me about the protocols, what protocols you're referring to?
Yeah, so we discussed them at the last meeting. For how the cabinet is moving forward with an operational budget. And I believe I heard tonight also that, or maybe I read it in this report, that work is already being done. But yet my understanding was that the guiding principles for the FY24 operational budget, an example would be minimizing a negative impact on students, reshaping the organization using an equity lens, those guiding principles. My understanding was that we did not approve those at this time, but that we were waiting to have additional conversation with the new board.
So what we, and this is for the new board members as well, what we shared with the board at its work session was a set of guiding principles that would be used by the cabinet and other members of the institution to create reduction packages that we need to do as part of the adopted budget, and also revenue enhancement packages. And we would use those guiding principles as principles for guiding that work. What we presented to the board was all of those principles in order to get the board's feedback and input into those principles. We were not expressly asking for the board's approval of those principles. In fact, we thought that the board actually gave us their blessing in essentially of those principles at that particular meeting. And those are the principles that we're using to guide our work. They will be, if I could just also add, they will be revisited, of course, because the new board members have not seen those guiding principles. And in the retreat, the guiding principles as well as other information will be presented about decision-making with respect to the board's role with respect to next year.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Because my understanding was that we did not approve the guiding principles and that we would have additional opportunity to discuss them. And so I will save that for the retreat because there are some things that I would like to see reflected in the guiding principles in terms of communication with the board and approaching it as a governance process. So, but I'll bring that up at the retreat. And the other thing that I could use information on was, and in fact, I heard Steve mention this earlier, that as what we discussed in the budgeting process was that we created this reserve to make up a shortfall if we don't meet enrollment issues, if we don't get the necessary funding that we needed from the board. This was a contingency plan, but I'm hearing this discussed as something that is going to happen. And so I would really like clarification about this as a contingency plan, because now we are seeing increases in enrollment. So thank you very much for that good work. We have seen additional funding from the state. We just heard we may have some additional savings based on other state legislation. But my understanding was similar to what Board Member Mattel expressed earlier, was that this was a contingency plan, not an automatic. So I need more clarification on that.
And Dr. Joyce, did you have something to say in regards to that as well?
Yes, into one of the items you mentioned a little earlier, Dr. Fragala, which was and Adrian mentioned too about the enrollments being up 17%. As of July the 3rd on the institutional research fall registration update, that is correct. The default of all enrollment is continuing students, new students are up 17%. It is, however, 12 weeks, 1 day.
I understand that. Yeah.
I just want to be cautious about counting the dollars because we'll see fluctuations between now and then, and we should always think about it.
Great. Thank you for that reminder.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other, Mike?
Well, so to just tag on to Lisa's comments, at each of the last two board meetings, I've asked Sue, prefaced it by saying, we are taking a snapshot of a moving picture and it moves every day. And there's been a lot of movement since 2 board meetings ago when we took some action. And I consistent with your question, Lisa, I think we need to be updated regularly on the snapshot of the moving picture. When I talk with Dr. Boulder about this, which I do occasionally, what I have heard is that the staff is working on this and needs a little bit of time to digest what's happened. And that as soon as some of that is taking place will be among the first to know.
Great.
I don't mean to speak on your behalf, Dr. Bolger, but that's kind of what I thought I heard.
Absolutely. That's what you heard. I thought we were being given that at that time, actually, and would certainly like to have that time. But whatever we have by the retreat, which is in how many days, 20 days or less than 20 days from now, we will certainly update the board based on what we have at that time. But it really is not just a moving target, but we're trying to figure out some of our systems as well. And so we want to make sure that we give our interim vice president of finance and operations an opportunity to do that so that the board can be very, very clear. We can feel confident in the numbers, and the board can be very, very confident as well, and clear that we are headed in the right direction. So I want to really just check in with the board and to see if the same impression is there regarding the guiding principles, because we want to make sure that we are aware of what your guidance is on that.
Absolutely. And as stated previously, we'll discuss that at our board retreat. So yeah, excellent. Any other questions in regards to the reports, the information reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to the good of the order. Future meeting dates. Obviously, future meeting is the board retreat and the future dates in the calendar. The next part here is not only agenda items, but also board questions, comments. This is a great opportunity for any additional items you'd like to see on the next agenda. Any questions, comments? I just really want to make the comment to welcome the board members. It is so great to see you here, and I really look forward to working with you.
I'm sure some of us who are new will come up with a bunch of questions at retreat, but I'm familiar with a board process, I guess I could say, or a habit where board members report out things that have been done in the community to represent, the college, or whether that's a chamber meeting or whatever kind of event. Is that part of what is done?
Absolutely, yeah. So like traditionally when I do my OCCA reports, I would do it in this section.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's in this section that, like, if we went and had a couple meetings with a couple key people or whatever, we would just kind of share that, or yeah. Okay.
Well,
No.
Austin has been very good about reporting on OCCA. I don't recall that the rest of us have routinely made the report you're talking about. And maybe that's a topic for discussion at the retreat.
I would like to suggest that because one of the things in the book that Dr. Bolger has asked us to read, which is sitting on my nightstand and I'm getting through it, is about feet on the street, if that's the expression.
Yeah.
So how we are staying in touch with our various constituencies and the organizations that they're in and represent. And I think that, we have a big county to represent.
Excellent. And would you also like to see like reports from LCOG Foundation, OCCA in this?
Yeah.
Perfect. Great.
What we're out and about doing.
Excellent. Noted. Any other board comments or questions?
I just have some process questions about how the board operates and maybe some ways that looking at what other boards do and maybe things we could copy to make things smoother as we move forward here. And then I have some other ideas, but I hope we'll get to dig into those deeper in the future. I don't think I'm new, so I want to take my time to not rock the boat, figure out what we need to do. But yeah, I'll have some ideas I want to
absolutely
bring back in the future.
Excellent. Cool. And we'll have some time in the board retreat as well. Okay.
Yeah, just really quickly and kind of piggybacking on what Zach said. I'm new. I'm looking forward to working with all the board members and president and staff. I'm really excited about this. I want to thank the voters of Lane County for electing me, and I will do my best to make decisions to make LCC even better than it is. Having been a student here many years ago. I'm excited to finally come back in this new role. So thank you.
Excellent. Any other board comments, questions? Excellent. We are adjourned. I believe no executive session is scheduled, correct?
No executive session.